The Young and the Restless spoilers shock. Preview week of July 14th to 18th, 2025. The night had begun like a celebration, an opulent gathering filled with laughter, soft music, and vintage wine echoing through the grounds of Chancellor Estate. But as the clock ticked past midnight, a sinister stillness began to settle over the estate, wrapping itself like a noose around each guest. The grand party, intended as a gesture of reconciliation and renewal, had twisted into a spiraling mystery that now bore the unmistakable stench of betrayal, deception, and perhaps murder. It started in the maze. The Chancellor maze had long been a symbol of strategy and misdirection, a tribute to the family's love of puzzles and legacy of secrecy. But tonight, it became a stage for confrontation. Amid tall hedges and winding paths, under the velvet sky, Kane Ashby and Damien Kane found themselves walking side by side. There had been tension between them for weeks, ever since Lily's grief over Damien's alleged death had morphed into something more complicated. Damien, now mysteriously alive and returned, was a walking question mark, and Kane, ever the opportunist, had taken a strange interest in smoothing things over, or so he claimed. With the stars glinting like sharp eyes above them, Kane produced a bottle of expensive red wine and poured 2 glasses. The gesture felt loaded, too deliberate. Damien hesitated, eyeing the glass, his expression unreadable. "You're not trying to poison me over Lily, are you?" he asked, half joking, half dead serious. Kane met his eyes, holding his own glass aloft. "I'm drinking the same thing," he said with a shrug, lips twisting into a smile that could be interpreted 1,000 ways. The glasses clinked, but the atmosphere remained brittle. As they walked deeper into the maze, their conversation teetered between passive-aggressive jabs and veiled sentimentality. But then it happened. Damien stumbled, his footing unsure. His hand shot out, grabbing Kane's shoulder as his breathing quickened. "Damien?" Kane asked, alarmed. "You okay?" But there was no answer. Damien's body slackened, and he collapsed onto a stone bench hidden within the hedges. Kane's expression twisted. First into shock, then into something harder to define. He leaned over, pressed a hand to Damien's chest, then to his forehead. "Damien," he whispered again, this time more urgently. And still, there was no response. Meanwhile, in another corner of the maze, a different confrontation unfolded, one less violent, but no less emotionally charged. Nick Newman stood beneath an arched trellis of blooming wisteria, his jaw clenched as he faced Phyllis Summers. The weight of years, of betrayal and forgiveness, of shared chaos and tangled loyalty, hung between them like storm clouds. "We're done with delay tactics," Nick said firmly, his voice barely above a growl. "This has gone on long enough." Phyllis narrowed her eyes, her hands folding defensively across her chest. "You think I'm hiding something?" she asked. "No," Nick said. "I think you're afraid. And I'm not going to let you spiral again." Phyllis let out a shaky breath, her voice softening. "No. I'm fine," she insisted. But the quiver in her voice betrayed the truth. Nick stepped closer, sensing the vulnerability she was trying to mask. "What did you see?" he asked. "You looked terrified." She didn't answer right away. Instead, her gaze drifted past him, toward the shadows of the maze. "Something's wrong tonight," she whispered. "I can feel it." And she wasn't wrong. Only moments later, a scream sliced through the night like a blade. It was Kane. He was shouting for help, his voice echoing through the hedges. "Somebody call a medic. He's not breathing." Within minutes, guests swarmed toward the maze entrance. Paramedics rushed to the scene. Damien lay motionless, color drained from his face. The glass he had been drinking from lay shattered on the ground. The party was over. The investigation had begun. By morning, Chancellor had taken over the estate, transforming what had once been a glamorous affair into a lockdown crime scene. In a calculated move, he instructed staff to isolate the guests. One by one, they were directed toward a retrofitted train car on the estate grounds, an elaborate relic from Catherine Chancellor's eccentric past. It now served as an impromptu interrogation chamber. Inside the car, a tension unlike any other filled the narrow space. Velvet seats, brass handles, and polished wood offered a false sense of comfort. Chance stood at the head of the aisle, clipboard in hand, eyes scanning each of the familiar faces before him. "I'm afraid what we're witnessing here may indeed be a murder," he said quietly. Gasps followed. Lily Winters, pale and visibly shaken, turned toward Chance. "Are you saying someone here tried to kill Damien?" she asked, her voice cracking with restrained fury. Chance didn't hesitate. "That's what the evidence suggests." Abby Newman stepped forward next, eyes wide with disbelief. "Wait, are you actually planning to question everyone?" she asked. "Separately?" Chance nodded. "That's correct." Devin Winters folded his arms, leaning back in his seat. "So what you're saying is," he said slowly, "we're all suspects." Chance met his gaze without flinching. "Until we know who poisoned Damien, yes." What followed was a slow unraveling of the evening's secrets, as Chance pulled each guest aside. There was Phyllis, whose behavior had grown increasingly erratic. Nick, whose protectiveness was masking something deeper. Devin, who admitted to a long-standing distrust of Kane. Sally Spectra, who had a private conversation with Damien earlier that no one could verify. And then there was Billy, absent from the maze but unable to account for 30 minutes of the evening. His feud with Kane was public knowledge, and now, it might be motive. Then came Kane's turn. He was still shaking from the incident, his voice raw as he spoke. "I swear, I didn't touch that drink. I poured it from a sealed bottle. I drank the same wine." "But you didn't collapse," Chance noted. Kane's jaw clenched. "That doesn't mean I poisoned it." "It doesn't prove you didn't," Chance countered. "You had motive. You've resented Damien since the day he came back from the dead." "Lily's love for him isn't the issue," Kane snapped, then softened. "Look, I was trying to make peace." "Peace in a maze," Chance murmured. "With no witnesses." It was circumstantial. But compelling. And then, hours later, news arrived from the hospital. Damien had stabilized. Poison was confirmed. A rare neurotoxin, fast-acting, but not always lethal. He was awake. And he had a question. "I want to speak to Kane," Damien said weakly, his voice low but urgent. When Kane entered the room, his body tense and fists clenched, Damien's eyes fixed on him. "Did you do this?" he asked. "Did you try to kill me over Lily?" Kane stared at him, his expression unreadable. "You think I'd be that stupid?" he asked. "I was drinking it too." Damien exhaled slowly. "But you knew how much, didn't you?" Silence. The maze. The wine. The stare. The collapsing body. The question lingered. Back at the estate, Claire Newman watched all of it unfold from the shadows of the train car. No one had spoken to her yet. No one had asked what she saw. But Claire had noticed everything, and if the night had proved anything, it was that in Genoa City, everyone has secrets. And sometimes, the most dangerous ones are hiding in plain sight. The sun had barely dipped below the horizon when Kane Ashby found himself once again walking along the quiet, manicured trails behind the Chancellor estate, this time not for business, nor for schemes, but for something far more delicate, a conversation. At his side was Amanda Sinclair, ever composed, ever observant, the kind of woman who had mastered the art of saying everything and nothing in the same breath. Kane wasn't sure if she was there as a friend, as a lawyer, or as a mirror reflecting back the man he used to be. But in this moment, he needed the presence of someone who didn't recoil at the mess of who he was. Still haunted by Damien's collapse and the swirling suspicions that he had been responsible, Kane felt the walls of perception closing in. He needed clarity, but the universe had other plans. Because just as he and Amanda rounded the curve near the old stone archway, Lily Winters appeared, radiant in the dimming light, her hair catching the last gold threads of the sun, her steps as confident as ever, yet with a touch of something new, something softer. But she was not alone. Beside her was Damien Kane, walking slowly but upright, still pale from his hospital stint but no longer fragile. He looked at ease, grounded, and far too close to Lily for Kane's comfort. The sight hit him like a punch to the chest, though he masked it with practiced nonchalance. Amanda noticed the shift immediately, the tensing jaw, the subtle narrowing of Kane's eyes, the forced breath. He smiled, a fractured kind of smile, and stepped forward. "Glad to see you're upright, Damien," Kane said, voice tight but measured. "We didn't get to finish our talk." Damien nodded politely, offering nothing more than a thin, unreadable expression. Before the moment could stretch into awkwardness, Kane turned to Lily, his voice light but laced with unspoken tension. "You two look comfortable." Lily met his gaze without hesitation, her arm brushing Damien's in a way that was impossible to ignore. "We are," she said. "We're together, Kane. I thought it was time you heard it from me." The words stung more than he expected, but Kane had already braced for the impact. He nodded slowly, the smile on his face fading into something far more honest. "I appreciate that," he said. "And I won't bring up the past again. If this is what makes you happy, then I hope it works out." "Really?" But even as the words left his mouth, they tasted like ash. Amanda glanced at him, her expression unreadable. Sensing the weight of the moment, Kane cleared his throat and turned to Damien. "Can I speak with you for a minute?" "Alone?" Damien looked to Lily for approval. She gave him a nod and stepped back. Kane and Damien walked off toward the tree line, the distance granting them privacy but not invisibility. Amanda and Lily stood in the growing twilight, the silence between them humming with tension. Amanda shifted her weight, her eyes never leaving Lily's face. "That was a hell of a moment," she said casually. Lily tilted her head, knowing full well what Amanda was dancing around. "Say what you're thinking," she replied. "I can take it." Amanda didn't hold back. "Are you with Damien because you care about him? Or because you knew Kane was watching?" The accusation landed sharp, but Lily didn't flinch. Instead, she turned fully to Amanda, her voice cool. "I don't use people, Amanda. That's not who I am." "I didn't say you did," Amanda replied. "But I know what heartbreak does to a person. And I know what power it gives you when someone you used to love still wants you." Lily's eyes narrowed. "And you think I want power over Kane?" Amanda sighed, folding her arms. "I think you want closure. But I also think part of you enjoys reminding Kane that he lost you. And that part of you isn't sure whether Damien is a safe haven or just a convenient way to prove a point." Lily's silence was answer enough. Amanda softened. "Look, I'm not judging you. I know what Kane's done. You have every reason to be cautious. But I've also seen how hard he's worked to become someone better. Someone worth trusting. And for what it's worth, Phyllis is the only one who still sees that without filter." That name made Lily bristle. "Phyllis? Of course she trusts Kane. She trusts anyone who gives her attention." Amanda raised a brow. "That's unfair, and you know it." The conversation teetered between confrontation and confession, both women circling a truth they weren't ready to face, that they each saw something in Kane they couldn't completely let go of. For Lily, it was history. For Amanda, it was possibility. And somewhere between the two was a man trying not to drown in the wake of his own mistakes. Meanwhile, beneath the ancient elm trees at the edge of the grounds, Damien and Kane spoke quietly, their tones hushed but heavy. "If you're going to accuse me, just do it," Kane said. "I'm tired of dancing around this." Damien shook his head. "I'm not accusing. I'm asking. Because I've been poisoned once, and now I'm walking back into a world where I can't tell who my enemies are. Kane looked at him, dead in the eye. If I wanted you dead, you wouldn't be walking. And if you wanted Lily back? Damien pressed. Kane didn't answer at first. Then, slowly, wanting something doesn't mean I'll destroy someone else to get it. He paused. Not anymore. It wasn't an admission. It was a reckoning. As the sun finally disappeared and the party turned into scattered farewells, none of the guests realized that Phyllis was watching it all from the second-story balcony, arms crossed, eyes narrowed. She had seen the exchange between Lily and Amanda. She had seen the hesitation in Lily's steps. And she had seen Kane walk back alone, his hands shoved deep in his pockets, looking more like a man defeated than one exposed. And she knew, as surely as she had known danger her entire life, that this story was far from over. Because no matter what Amanda believed, or what Lily pretended to feel, the truth was simmering beneath every glance, every drink, every quiet word in the dark. And in Genoa City, nothing stays buried forever. Would you like the next scene to explore Kane's potential relapse or redemption, Lily's confrontation with Phyllis, or Amanda's shifting loyalty? I can continue the arc immediately based on your preference.